As 2017 comes to a close, I'd like to look back and to reflect on this year in film. As always, we've had some bad movies, we've had some okay movies, and we've had some great movies. And today, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about my favorite 20 films of the year. Full disclosure, before you watch this video, my list undoubtedly will be different than yours. If I didn't mention a movie, does that mean that I thought it was bad? No. If I didn't mention your favorite movie of the year, does that mean I dislike it or you? No. So with that out of the way, I'd like to throw out some honorable mentions of films that I did thoroughly enjoy, but just didn't quite make the cut. So from order from greatest to least, we have Blade Runner 2049, Ingrid Goes West, It Comes at Night, The Florida Project, and Coco. Now without further ado, we have my favorite films of 2017. With Marvel Studios and their nearly 20 films in their franchise, it's hard to keep the films just as exciting and just as entertaining as back in 2008 with Iron Man, but somehow Thor Ragnarok pulled it off. Taika Waititi has not only directed one of the best superhero films of the year, but he also directed one of the best comedies of the year. This film introduces great, exciting new characters like Valkyrie and of course Korg. And again, with the character that I wasn't in love with before this film, it's insane to think that this quickly became one of my favorite Marvel movies that they've done. This was a film that I hadn't seen until about a few days ago, actually, and this is a movie that has just stuck with me ever since. This is a really touching movie that deals with adolescence and identity in such a unique way. This film also features some of the best performances that you will see this year as well, with Armie Hammer and Timothée Chalamet, and this movie, without a doubt, will be in the running for Best Picture at the Oscars. This is a film that I hadn't seen in theaters, but I actually watched on Amazon Prime just a few days ago as well, and I am blown away at how much I loved this movie. It's actually upsetting that not enough people are talking about this film. This is a really funny movie. This is a film that deals with sisterhood and trust. I loved this movie, and if you have Amazon Prime and you want to see just a really sweet comedy, please check out this film. This film is one of the most impressive and badass action movies that I've seen in recent years. It's crazy to think that they took the awesomeness that was the first film and updid it in almost every single way. This is a relentlessly entertaining movie that has some of the best action and hand-to-hand combat scenes that you'll see all year, and this remains to be one of the most fun movie-going experiences that I've had in 2017. This movie had the difficult task of one-upping a sequel that was already incredible. Not only that, but bringing this conclusion to a trilogy that is beloved by fans. This is a film, despite what the title may actually lead you to believe, that doesn't have these humongous battles and these very large and bloated action scenes. On the contrary, this is a character film with these psychological battles that are going on between our two leads. This is a masterfully crafted film and has some of the best special effects that these eyes have ever seen, and it just stands tall at being one of the best conclusions to a trilogy. From A24, this film has given me one of the most visceral experiences that I had in the theater this year. This is a very risky movie that goes in places that I really wasn't expecting it to go. This is a balls-to-the-wall, crazy movie that has one of my favorite performances of the year with Robert Pattinson. I think this is one of A24's strongest films. I saw this French film this spring when I was in Los Angeles, and I'm so glad I did. This movie offers such a unique perspective on adolescence and femininity. There were moments in this movie that made my stomach churn, but then there were also moments that I thought were really touching, actually. Unfortunately, this movie has not been released in the United States on Blu-ray. You can watch it on DVD, but you can also watch it on Netflix, and if you haven't done that, I highly recommend that you see Raw. After 5 Spider-Man films, it took this long to get a movie that is this close to the comic books and is actually a solid adaptation of one of the most famous characters in comics of all time. And who would have thought that decades of source material would turn out to be an incredible film? This movie is funny, Tom Holland is pitch perfect as the webhead himself, and this also has what, in my opinion, is the best villain in the MCU. This is one of the few comic book movies that I've seen that felt like I was actually reading a comic book. This is a great film, and I cannot wait to see what happens next with this interpretation of this character. I never knew how much I wanted this film until I watched that first trailer for this movie and you see Wolverine shove his claws through a man's skull. Oh my gosh, so satisfying. And looking back, it seems like it's a no-brainer that you would give someone with knives on their fists a rated R movie, but actually, I am so glad that it took this long. It was well worth the wait. Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart were able, because of their long and extensive career as these characters, were able to put caps on these performances that felt so satisfying and so earned. And even though this movie does have some issues, I could not be happier with the result, and the pros far outweigh the cons. I've always been someone that's willing to go to bat for M. Night Shyamalan. Even with some of the incredibly bad missteps that he has had in the past, I always knew that there was still some magic left in the director that is known as M. Night. And he came back with some of that M. Night magic and proved that he is still the powerful and suspenseful director that he is with Split. This is the rare instance where a movie can improve so much solely on the ending, and it's one of my favorite endings of the year. I was so blown away in the theater. James McAvoy undoubtedly gives one of the best performances of the year, and it is an absolute shame that he is not being talked about this year for Oscar nominations. It's so great to see M. Night come back to form and direct an absolute home run of a movie, and I cannot wait to see what's next with Glass. Alright, now we're in the top 10, and what better movie to kick off the top 10 than a film that I thoroughly enjoyed, The Big Sick. I absolutely adored this film. This is a lovely movie. This has almost everything that you could want with a movie like this. It has the heart, it has the jokes, it has the relationship, and it has underlying themes of interracial marriage as well as religion. I absolutely loved this film. After rewatching the painfully boring and just horrendous miniseries that is the 1990s It, I was a little nervous with this movie, but it turned out to be one of the greatest remakes of all time. I would throw this movie up there with things like The Fly and The Things as just completely solid horror remakes. Bill Skarsgård as the sinister Pennywise just completely unsettled me to my core so many times in this film, and it genuinely scared me, which is something that is rare. If there's any director working right now that it seems almost impossible for them to get any bit better, Edgar Wright is definitely one of those, and somehow he managed to do it with Baby Driver. This is one of the most energetic films that I've seen all year. This movie just absolutely oozes cool. It has an incredible soundtrack mixed with these stunts that make it almost like a dance, and Baby Driver is definitely one of the films that any self-respecting movie fan should see. As a fan of The Room, this movie was so incredibly satisfying to see. I'm so glad that I liked this movie as much as I did, because I certainly didn't think I was going to, but somehow they pulled it off. James Franco works magic in front of and behind the camera, and somehow this movie manages to interweave a ton of humor, as well with this really touching message of friendship, as well as creativity and expression. Last year, if you would have told me that a DCEU film would be in my top 10 favorite movies of the year, I probably would have laughed right in your face. But thankfully, Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins came together to make what is my favorite comic book movie of the year. The people involved with this film have done something truly special and so pure. Wonder Woman is an absolute delight, and I'm so glad that I saw it 3 times in the theater. There's so many great touching character moments in this film as well, interspersed through great action scenes like No Man's Land. Every single time I watched this movie, I got goosebumps without fail, which was again 3 times. Probably the most controversial film of the year, and I'm glad. Star Wars should be the type of movie to get people talking, but for me personally, I loved this film, and I'm very excited to see what they do next with this new trilogy. This movie did things that I thought were completely unexpected, but also so satisfying. This is one of the rare big-budget movies where I was watching this film and I actually felt nervous for our heroes. That never happens. This isn't a perfect film, but again, this is a type of movie that the pros far outweigh the cons. This is one of the best movie-going experiences that I had this year. I had an absolute blast watching this film, and I cannot wait to see what happens next. Once again, A24 delivers another incredible film that I am sure is going to be on many top 10 lists this year. This is a film that is completely relatable on almost every single level. It's funny, it's incredibly well written, the character of Lady Bird is among my favorite characters of the year. Greta Gerwig directs an extremely personal film with Saoirse Ronan, and it becomes one of the best coming-of-age movies that I've seen in the past decade or so. Brigsby Bear. Oh boy, this is a movie that I feel like I have a little bit to myself, which is a bit bittersweet. Slowly, I have been seeing people start to discover this film and start to say how much they love this movie, but this is a film that no one is talking about, and it really makes me upset, actually. This is such an incredibly fun and sweet and charming movie. And for me personally, this film completely took me by surprise. I had absolutely no idea what this film was about, and it just absolutely floored me. This is a film that feels like it was catered to me. With last year's Sing Street, this movie does what they did for music, but with movies. This film deals with things like fandom and passion and creativity. And if you have not seen Brigsby Bear, please do yourself a favor and seek out this film. Coincidentally, Taylor Sheridan continues to write a film that is in my number 2 spot 2 years in a row. I've seen this movie twice now, and when I watched it the second time, I was equally as riveted as the first time. This is a very tightly constructed thriller that features some powerhouse performances from nearly everyone involved, especially Jeremy Renner. This film also features a scene that is flat out one of the most satisfying moments that I've seen this entire year. This film has so many themes going on in it. It has friendship, it has grief. There's so many moments of suspense in this film. This is such an incredibly taut and well-crafted movie that if you have not seen, again, I highly recommend that you do so. Well guys, we've done it. My favorite movie of 2017. This is a film that I saw earlier in the year, but even 10 months later, I have not seen a single film that was able to knock it off the number 1 spot. Jordan Peele crafts one of the most intriguing, one of the most well-written, and one of the most intense horror films that I've seen in the past 10 years or so. This is a film that so skillfully interweaves themes of racism into the mundanity of meeting your girlfriend's parents. This movie also features some of the most memorable lines of any movie this year. Rose, give me those keys, Rose. This is also a really surprisingly funny movie with Lil Rel Howery portraying the TSA agent friend. He had me laughing from start to finish. This movie is intense, it's smart, it's scary, and I honestly cannot think of a single problem that I have with this film. I do genuinely think that this should be up for Best Picture nominations, and I think it is an absolute travesty if it does not get multiple nods at the Oscars this year. I think what Jordan Peele was able to accomplish with this film is not just something that horror fans should be able to appreciate. Critics and the Academy should also hold this movie aloft for being the absolute masterpiece that it is. Alright guys, that does it for 2017. There are some films that I haven't seen this year that may or may not have made this list. I don't really know yet. If you guys want a bit more in-depth thoughts on some of these movies, you can check on the playlist down below. There are several reviews that are mentioned in this video, and you can also click the link down below to see a list of my top 50 favorite films of the year in order. Also, keep an eye out for my top 10 worst movies of 2017. That should be coming very soon. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you liked today's video. And if you did, click on the link down below and subscribe to my channel for more reviews and movie related things. Again, thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.